I'm going to use these 1-gallon water bottles to pour water into the sump 1 gallon at a time and keep track of it. And as I pour in each gallon, I'm marking it on a piece of green frog tape that's stuck to the front. I want to figure out where 10 gallons from the top is. So the first thing to do is figure out how much in total goes into this central section. I calculated it mathematically at it's somewhere around 13 gallons, a little bit more than that, so we'll see how close I got. So this part of the sump holds 13.6 gallons, and all I need to do now is remove that tape and move it upwards so that the number 13 aligns with the top of the baffle that leads to the return chamber. Then when I count down to number 3, I can put a mark there, and I know that will be 10 gallons removed from the center section. I'll need to know that when I do a water change. We have a Cobalt inline pump installed in the back right corner, and the hose that comes out of it is resting on the bottom. And that's the pump we're going to use to remove water from the sump, this part of the sump, when the time comes for a water change. So now it's time to see if that works. So time to flip the switch. And nothing is happening. I hear the pump operating. Still no water, just a lot of noise. So I came downstairs and it looked like there might be an airlock, and that's why the water wasn't actually flowing completely through the hose. So you can see the water sitting there, and my husband is upstairs turning the pump on and off, and it does move, but no water can seem to make it into the drain. So my husband got a flashlight out because he had a suspicion, and he looked at the pump, and it turned out that it was facing the wrong way. So the intake was where the outflow should be. So once he switched it around, we saw that it works. Once we got the pump working and actually pumping water out of here, we shut it off because we wanted to see whether a siphon was created and operating once the pump was turned off. And it turned out it was. The water was decreasing. My husband went downstairs just to check, and it was coming out of the drain. So we can't assume that when we start the pump and then shut it off, that the water actually does stop flowing, because once water starts going through that hose, it continues unless the siphon is somehow broken. We really can't take the chance of ending up siphoning out all of the water we put in here in the central section, because worse than emptying it entirely would be emptying all of the new water that we end up pumping in because we're unaware that it was going on. Just out of curiosity, we timed it, and it takes 1 minute to siphon 1 gallon. It takes 30 seconds to pump 1 gallon. So this is good information to have. So we'll use a suction cup to fasten that hose to the front glass at the 3-gallon mark so that it's out of the water once 10 gallons have been pumped out of here. And that will break the siphon and stop the water going down. The hose that comes from the saltwater tote comes down the back right corner and stops about 1 inch from the bottom. We're thinking this would reduce the amount of splashing, and it's hidden away and very neat and tidy. Turn the pump on. There we come. You can hear the gurgling. And there we go. So this is water that's coming from the saltwater container in the basement. It's just flowing gently into the back there. That was one of the things I was concerned about. I didn't want it blasting in here. Well, after pumping water up from the saltwater tote, we learned we have a siphon. Once the pump was shut off, the water reversed and started traveling back down. So this is good to know. To break this siphon, we had to reorient the hose. So I've just moved it and curved the end of the hose upwards, and hopefully it will be out of the water when the water level reaches there and stop the siphon. So we're going to try this again. Okay, so now it goes into the return chamber where we didn't have any water before. Need a new solution. Here it comes. We found a right angle fitting from one of the many boxes of stuff that we have after having 15 years worth of freshwater tanks, and that works perfectly. It fits into the end of the hose and it directs the water downwards. The only thing is, it splashes a lot and it's noisy. One final tweak was to take part of an old siphon, the straight part that goes into the gravel, and suction cup it to the side, and now the water is directed into the top of that so it flows down to the bottom, and I think we can safely conclude that the water change system now works. This 7.5 gallon polyethylene container is what I'm using for the ATO. Now we're going to test whether the pump in the RODI tote in the basement actually works to pump the water up into this container. Controller's on. Ooh, and there it is. So I can pump RODI water from the basement up here to my ATO container. Excellent.